the one thing that changes everything. And so often we think, whether it's in relationships, that we need to, do all the work to understand every detail of them to make them stronger. And that's true. That stuff really, really helps to understand at a granular level, how do you become a great friend or a great partner in a relationship? And all of that work's important. But underneath it all, if you don't also do the work of self-worth, of believing you're worthy of great friendships, of great relationships, then you will always sabotage them, or you will always do something to either never go for them, to never ask the person, do you want to be friends, and invest in that friendship as an adult, or you'll never tell the person you want to be more than friends in the relationship, or you somehow will hold back from showing up as the person you can be in that relationship if underneath it all you don't believe you're worthy. Labels are not permanent. But here's the thing, every single one of us so easily lets labels stick to us, take root in our identity. So many of these labels were given to us by sometimes well-meaning people growing up. Sometimes they were hurtful labels that we heard once in our childhood and let stick to us, right? Sometimes they're labels we gave ourselves. But labels, whether they're things like empowering ones, right? Like smart, kind, generous, successful, chosen, celebrated, victorious, winner, right? Those things can be really empowering when we let them take root in our identity and we let them stick to us. But so often it's the disempowering labels that we let stick to us. Sometimes we're not even aware of it. Sometimes one stuck to us, we let it take root, we're not even aware, and we've been carrying it around our entire lives, right? Some of the disempowering labels, right? I've carried around so many my entire life until I became aware of them and aware of this question, which is, what have the labels you've let stick to you and take root in your identity already cost you in your life? What have they already cost you? And here's the beautiful part, y'all. Labels are not stuck on us with super glue. They're not bolted onto us. They are like Post-its. They are like Post-its with that light adhesive that you just literally peel off. They're totally removable. And when you learn to remove them, it changes everything. I have an entire chapter where I go so deep into an exercise on how to identify all the disempowering labels in your life and how to replace them with empowering ones, and what are the steps you take to remove them. But when it comes to in Worthy, by the way, a whole chapter in Worthy about the lie that labels are permanent. They are not permanent. Here's the thing. Disempowering labels, those are the ones that so often we let take root, right? It's one thing if you, let's say you put something out there, no one likes it, it gets rejected, it fails, whatever it might be. That can shake your confidence. But when you let it take root to the point where you put a label on yourself and you think, I am rejected, I am a failure, that's when those labels, right? I'm a loser. Nothing good ever happens to me. I'm unwanted. I'm rejected. That is when those labels take root and they start to impact your self-worth, and they just chip away at it slowly, slowly, slowly over time. And labels are really, really, really important to become aware of. And so just to ask you this question off the bat, when you think about some of the labels that maybe somebody said to you and you let it take root in your childhood. It could have been family. Like for so many years, a lot of my well-intended family who loves me, I would have these big ideas like, oh, I want to save the world, or can we end world hunger? I would talk about these big ideas. And they would say, you're crazy. You're crazy. Who do you think you are? Right? Or I'd have these big dreams and they would say things like that do not happen to people like us. So it could be these little just loving things people say, but we can let them take root on us, right? There's a whole chapter, by the way, in Worthy called You're Not Crazy, You're Just First. You're the first ever you. But that is an example of a label, crazy. I had to remove that, right? And replace it with an empowering label. Oh, no, I'm not crazy. I'm just first, the first ever me, and you are the first ever you. And I have learned after obsessing over this on how to literally replace these disempowering labels with empowering ones. So, labels are very, very powerful. A good friend of mine, Ed Milet, who some of you know. He shared a story that was just so profound on how labels can help you, right? So when he was a little boy, he was getting teased a lot in school for being so skinny. The classmates would call him Eddie Spaghetti, and he was kind of struggling in class. He was dealing with some addiction issues in his household at home, and just lots that he was going through. And he remembers one day in the classroom, a man coming into the class and asking his teacher for who was the smartest ones, the smartest students in class, because they were going to bring the smartest ones to a special testing room to represent the whole class in that year's testing program. And the teacher said very loud so that Ed could hear, she said, "Eddie Milet over here, he's my smartest one. He's the smartest one." And Ed just remembers his teacher knew he was going through a really, really hard time and struggling. And he just remembers thinking, I'm the smart one. I'm the smartest one. And to this day, he says he wasn't. He says he just believes his teacher did that to literally stick a label onto him. But he chose to let it take root that day. He chose to let it believe, oh, I'm not Eddie Spaghetti, who all my classmates are teaching, like they're teasing over and over. I'm the smartest one. I'm the smart, she sees me, right? I'm the smartest one. And he let that label take root. Fast forward today, his work is inspiring hundreds of millions of people every single day with his show, with his books, with all the stuff that he does. When we let these labels take root and we believe them, they are so powerful. And this can impact every area of your life. And so, I just want to ask you to take a few minutes. You could pause this video and just write down and just think about what are some of the disempowering labels that you've let stick to you. Because while they're easy to remove like Post-it notes, when they stick to you, they feel like lead balloons, like you're trying to fly and soar in your life, but you have these lead balloons attached to your wings. That is what disempowering labels can feel like. And just taking a moment to identify what those are. And you may even want to, next to them, write out what has believing that label cost you in the different areas of your life. And then next to it, you want to write out an empowering label that is absolutely true. A new empowering label that is absolutely true. An example of this in my life was, I was adopted and placed into adoption the day I was born. And I was raised by parents who just loved me. Like they loved me. And they worked so much, like 7 days a week, very hard work, the hardest working people I know. And they taught me work ethic and they taught me how to work hard. But growing up, I always felt abandoned. I always felt like they chose work over me. I always felt alone often. And later in life, when I found out by complete surprise in my 20s, I was adopted, and just combined with a lot of other things, I realized I had taken on these labels like that stuck to me and really impacted a lot of decisions I was making in my life, because labels can take root in our identity. So I believed, like I had labels that had stuck on myself, labels like unwanted, rejected, abandoned, right? Like labels like that. And y'all, they came out in the kind of people I was attracted to when I dated. They came out in the kind of treatment. I would let people mistreat me, or I didn't think I was worthy of more than that. I had these labels stuck to me. And in my life, I had to, first of all, become aware of what they are. And then second of all, go, okay, you know what? I don't accept that. I know in my soul, like in my mind where self-doubt lives, oh, it's easy for me to say I'm rejected, unwanted, abandoned. But in my soul, that's where our knowing, that's where our truth lives. I'm not any of those things. And through prayer and through really tuning into that knowing, that still small voice, right? And through doing this work, I've been able to replace these labels with new labels I know and just believe are true in every ounce of my being. And I've reframed them. So instead of feeling unwanted or rejected or abandoned as an identity, I'm like, oh, wait a minute. My birth mom, she chose me. Like, first of all, big step back, my birth mom and dad were together one time ever. That's it. God chose me. Like, he chose me to come into this world. My birth mom did not have to carry me. Her life would have been a lot easier had she not. She chose to have me. And then my adopted parents chose to raise me. I am not unwanted or rejected or abandoned. I'm chosen. I'm chosen. So are you. And it's just replacing those labels has helped me really, literally raise the ceiling on my identity and self-worth. And that impacts every single area of your life. So labels are not permanent. That is a lie. That is a lie. And when we believe the disempowering ones, it starts to chip away at our self-worth.
The fifth lie I wanted you to explain that you had to confront was labels are permanent. What does that mean?
Yes, Mel. So many of us in our life have let labels that someone else said about us, it could be in our childhood, it could be in a relationship as an adult, something an employer said, something someone said online, something we told ourselves. We've let these labels stick to us and take root, and we've told ourselves the lie that they're permanent.
I have a question for you about this, because there is this remarkable thing that happened to you when you were building IT Cosmetics, where you are wildly successful. You're sitting in a meeting with a bunch of bankers. You have gone through all of these rounds through this process, and somebody gave you a label. And I'd love for you to tell that story and then tell us, how the heck did you peel that label off yourself?
Yes.
When somebody so publicly just took you down?
Yes. So often we think the label's permanent, or we don't realize we're carrying it around and we're believing it. We're letting it take root in our identity. But labels are like Post-it notes. They have this light adhesive. They come right off when you decide for them to come off. So, but it's hard when we don't realize they're stuck to us. And they can be like lead balloons on our wings when we're trying to fly. They hold us down. And so I was meeting with this potential investor, huge private equity company. And you guys, I really wanted him to believe in us because I thought maybe he'll be able to use all his leverage and power to get us into all the retail stores, right, that were telling us no. And this big investor, they're known for like taking little small companies and making them huge companies that a lot of us shop for in grocery stores or big box retailers.
And to put this in context, you're already killing it on QVC. Like, this is not like you're in your living room anymore. This is, Jamie is legit the biggest brand at QVC. She is destroying it, and now she's going to level this up. And so she goes to somebody in the industry, and you have the results, and you have the product, and you've got the track record, and you've got the revenue, and you go waltzing in there meeting after meeting and tell us what happened.
And they loved our products, and I just thought, this is going to be so great because we're going to take it to the next level and all these things. And got to the final meeting. I presented our whole product pipeline for the future, and I just thought this was going so well. I thought, oh my gosh, this is going to be it. This is going to be it. And at the very end of the meeting, he's 3 feet from me. My husband's on the other side. And I remember the moment his mouth started moving and he says, congratulations, you should be so proud of this product, but it's a no. We're going to pass on investing in IT Cosmetics. And I was like, okay, can you tell me why? Because feedback is usually a gift. And he just got really quiet. And then he says to me, do you want me to be really honest with you? And I said, yes, please. He says, I just don't think women will buy makeup from someone who looks like you with your body and your weight. I remember a lifetime of self-doubt and body doubt, flooding my body all at once, right? But Mel, the moment he said those words to me, I just don't think women will buy makeup from someone who looks like you with your body and your weight. I got this feeling in the pit of my stomach. I can feel like it was yesterday that said, he's wrong. And what I know happened in that moment, because I got that deep feeling, was that this dude gave me a no, but God gave me a knowing, right? And it goes back to what we're talking about, is whether we're the ones telling ourselves no or someone else gives us a label and it's a no.
it always comes down to which you listen to. Do you listen to the no or do you listen to the knowing? We let these labels or these stories we're telling about ourselves stick to us. And sometimes we don't realize we're doing it. Okay. And whether it's, I've had failures, I've made mistakes, everyone keeps breaking up with me, friends betray me, whatever these stories are, these labels can snowball and impact everything we believe. And so in Worthy, I go through this exercise on how do you identify these labels. They can impact your self-worth at such a deep level. And again, in life, so many of us have had failures, rejections, etc., that have rattled our confidence. But when we let them take root as a label that we're a failure, we're a reject, that's when it impacts our self-worth. That's when it impacts everything in our life. And so learning to identify those labels and then ask yourself, is that really true? No, it is not really true. It is the story we are telling ourselves, right? And we can remove that label and replace it with a new empowering label. So in the case of me being adopted and my parents always working, I was like, okay, I can look at it as I'm unwanted or abandoned.
Right.
And instead I'm like, no. What is something that is actually really true? It has to be true that I'm going to believe about this story. Oh, I'm chosen. My birth mom, her life would have been way easier if she did not have me, but she chose to have me. And then my parents who raised me chose to adopt. I'm not rejected. I'm not unwanted. I'm chosen. And here's one of my favorite ones for someone listening today. This is my, oh my gosh, I'm going to jump in my seat.
You
at
are
this
hopping
one.
in your
I'm
seat.
hopping in my seat.
She's getting wound up, everybody.
Because I feel like
Jamie's winding herself up.
You know, when you like talk about our knowing, I just think about every day. We get rejected. We tell ourselves no's. We get people sticking labels on us. We apply for the job. We want it so bad. And we don't know why they didn't see our value. And we don't get it. And we have the person betray us or pull the rug out from under us. And we're so tempted to assign a label that is disempowering, right? And so my favorite way to do this is to replace it with new empowering labels. So for example, every time something like that happens to me, I will assign a new label that I believe to be true, whether it was the person that I really wanted to be friends with and they just don't see my value, or the people that don't include me, or the door that closed in my face, or whatever it is. I decide the label is divinely ordered, like my life is divinely orchestrated, right? And I choose that label and that trust over rejected, failure. By the way, Mel, I don't think I've ever shared this before on out loud, but in high school, I was voted biggest procrastinator.
Really?
Biggest procrastinator in the high school yearbook. And listen, at the time, it was kind of true. You know what I mean? I wanted to hang out with my friends and I was working 4 jobs. And so I'd turn in homework late and all these things. If I let that label that people gave me at that time, biggest procrastinator, there right in the yearbook, if I let that take root, I could have never, when I had those feelings, when I was a struggling waitress, feeling like, oh, I could launch a business. If I let that label take root, I could have never done it, right? It's about assigning new labels,
And this is everywhere. I'm thinking people that say, I'm not a morning person.
Yes.
Or I'm not smart, or I'm not good with languages, or I'm not great at math, or I could never. Or
I'm too old. I'm too young. My
Got it.
days have passed. No one wants all of it.
Wow.
All of it. Mm-hmm.
I feel like I should just race out of here and go do something. I'm like, okay, all right. You know,
read
if you're
Worthy.
a great sermon or emotional motivation, I'm like, okay, let's go. But whatever happened to that investor? Did you ever see him again?
Okay, I didn't hear. By the way, I prayed before this episode, something that would happen in this room today is exactly for someone listening to us right now. Okay. So I love that you feel that way because I feel that way. I cannot wait until people write into the Mel Robbins podcast and share this episode, right? Because that we all need to unlearn these lies that lead to self-doubt. Okay, I did not hear from that potential investor again for 6 years. The day that we sold our business to L'Oreal, right? Which, how wild. I mean, when I was waitressing Denny's, saving my tip money, I could have never imagined that this would all happen. I had hoped, I had little feelings, but the day L'Oreal bought our business for $1.2 billion cash, and they were a public company. So it was all over the press. It was the homepage of the Wall Street Journal. That was the first time I heard from him. the one who said women won't buy makeup from someone who looks like you. First time I heard from him in 6 years. And he said, congratulations on the L'Oreal deal. I was wrong.
No shit.
And it's funny. I know I've joked with you before about this, that in that moment, like, I just think for anyone who's seen the movie Pretty Woman, where she goes in the store and they won't help her, and then she comes back later. Like, what I wanted to say to him in that moment was, big mistake, huge. I can give you 1.2 billion reasons why. It was a huge mistake, but I kept it classy. I did not say that. I wouldn't have wanted to be him. And I believe, I go into Worthy about...
But here's the thing.
Yeah.
Here's the thing. If he had said yes, you wouldn't have sold your company for over $1 billion to L'Oreal, and you wouldn't have been directed on the path you were meant to go. And one of my biggest takeaways always when I listen to you and I hear your wisdom is that it's easy to look backwards at your life and both go, thank God it happened that way, or I now understand how all the dots connect.
Yes.
What you're talking about is the life-changing magic of learning how to be in the present moment, the present day, and trust that the dots will connect.
Yes.
And that your life is directing you toward the lessons or toward the life that you are supposed to be leading. And that if you can get out of this self-doubt, and if you can tee up the lies and the labels that you keep telling yourself that simply aren't freaking true, that you can drop into this deeper knowing. And the deeper knowing can be as simple as, it is going to work out.
Yeah.
I am figuring it out.
Yep.
I do know what is right for me.
And I'm worthy of being who I am. I'm worthy of my goals and my dreams. And our self-worth is our ceiling. Our self-worth is our ceiling in every area of life. And it's those lies that I'm so grateful we got to dive into, that they create a ceiling for us. They create a ceiling, right? And so unlearning those lies and learning to believe that you are worthy exactly as you are. You are not crazy. You're just first, right? That your past failures do not determine your future successes, right? That if you stand out, you'll get kicked out. If you stand out, that is how you step into alignment with your assignment and the person that you're born to be. So it's like unlearning those lies is the greatest way to get like on your North Star of who you're born to be, and to enjoy the journey. Because when we're living under the belief of all these lies, you cannot be fulfilled. No matter how much you accomplish, you cannot be fulfilled when you don't believe you're enough. You cannot accomplish your way into fulfillment when underneath it all, you don't believe you're enough. You cannot get married and have the kids and get the 6-pack abs and do all the things you thought, and then those will make you fulfilled. They will not make you fulfilled when underneath it all, you do not believe you are worthy or enough. And so that is why this episode is so powerful that you're putting out about unlearning the lies. You are fully worthy, and learning to believe you are and that you are enough. That is what brings fulfillment in your whole life. That's when you on that path are able to be fulfilled as you step into all the most beautiful and hard and difficult parts of your life. And last thing I'll say is, when you believe you're worthy, you become more fearless and more ambitious, right? Because I might go for it and fall flat on my face. It might shake my confidence for a little bit, but it cannot touch my self-worth, right? So your self-worth is your ceiling, which is why I'm so passionate about this. Because when we don't believe we're enough as we are, we'll either stay stuck, we'll go for things and sabotage them, we'll hit a ceiling, or we'll actually achieve them, but feel empty and like something's missing. So believing you're enough, building your sense of worthiness, it's the key. I did a lot of things my whole life where I did not feel fulfilled, and I thought something was missing even though I was achieving, and I didn't know why. And it's because deep down inside, I didn't yet believe I was enough. So that is the one thing that will change everything.
So how did you and Paulo believe it, even when you maybe shouldn't have believed it? How did you keep each other positive on this journey of rejection and a ton of no's?
Yeah, it's one of the hardest things to do. And I think that when I look back, like there was a lot of mistakes I made, a lot of times where I put experts' opinion on a pedestal instead of my own faith and my own inner knowing, right? Which is so tempting to do. And so, one story I think that really captures, because I think so many of us connect through the power of story, right? And captures like some of the things we did that helped us believe, helped us stay positive, helped us keep going. And they came out of some of the toughest moments. So we were a couple of years into the business. It was so hard. We were down to under $1,000 in our bank account, which was not just our company bank account, it was our personal bank account. So anyone out there, whoever has been in that spot and you go to an ATM to get cash and you hit no receipt because you don't want to see it. You know what I'm saying? Like that's what you can't, like that's where we were at. And dollar hot dogs from Costco on the counter outside. Anybody who goes and eats it. The good thing is those taste good, but it was like, how do we conserve every penny we have? It was like a season like that. And we finally got a big call from an investor at a private equity firm. And John, I was so excited because this particular private equity company, they've invested in tons of like consumer product companies, like products all of us right now buy at the grocery stores. A lot of them, they've taken this particular PE place has invested in some of them pre-revenue, some of them when they're really small, and built them to these huge household names. So I'm sitting there going, oh my gosh, they see how how good our product is, what we're doing. Like if they invest in us, like A, maybe we're not going to go bankrupt. B, maybe they'll have leverage and help get us in all these stores that are telling us no and get us on QVC is telling us no. So I was so excited and we started taking meetings and they seemed super interested. We got to the final meeting after the diligence phase, which is when you show them your projections and your plans and all that. I'll never forget this moment. And it was a defining moment that helped me understand how do you stay positive in the face of adversity and opposition and hard times and setbacks. We got to the final meeting, okay? And I was like, it's going to happen. Paulo and I flew in for the meeting. And they were so kind. Everyone was great. And then the head guy, and he was standing about 3 feet from me. And he says to me, so, we just want to tell you, we appreciate you. We're rooting for you, all these things, but it's a no. We're going to pass on investing in IT Cosmetics. And by this point, I'm so used to hearing no, right? And I'm like, okay, can you tell me why? Like, could you give me any input or feed? Because usually feedback's a gift, right? And he goes, well, do you want me to be honest with you? Like really honest with you? And I'm like, yes, please. And he was literally 3 feet from me. And he says, I just don't think women will buy makeup from someone who looks like you, with your body and your weight. And I remember watching, it was almost like I was watching his mouth move in slow motion. And when these words were coming out, I felt like this lifetime of body doubt and self-doubt, like flood my body all at once. And I remember as I was watching him say these words, I wasn't offended or anything like that. I mean, it wasn't even about him. It was almost like I was staring my own fear straight in the eye. And I remember this moment where two things happened. Like I remember feeling like, okay, I need to keep my faith bigger than my fears right now. But I also had this deep feeling as he was talking where I just felt he's wrong. He's wrong. But I also felt like if I was ever going to prove that, it would come down to me truly learning how to believe it for myself. And the other thing that happened, and I truly believe our setbacks, even when they suck, even when they hurt, even when they don't make sense, even when they're unfair, our setbacks are so often our setups, right? For fuel of what we're supposed to step into. And when he said those words, I thanked him for his time, because what I realized in that moment was like, oh, he has seen the same images his whole life of what beauty is that I have too, right? Him passing on investing in us because of my weight, that is exactly why I need to create this, like build this company, shift culture and beauty because it doesn't just affect women, it affects everybody. And he's a dad to little, right? And it's like, it affects everyone. And I never took his no personally. It fueled me. And by the way, just a fun side note is 8 years later, when we sold to L'Oreal, and their largest U.S. acquisition in history, I got an email from him, and he said, "Congratulations, I was wrong." And I also learned we would have been the biggest investment in his the most successful investment in his company's history. And the last thing I'll share is on this is that when I talk about our setbacks or our setups, had he said yes to us at that time, we were so desperate. We were so small. We had what looked like no opportunities around us. We probably would have sold like the majority of our business to him for almost no money just to survive. Instead, we ended up because everyone rejected us in big part, we ended up staying the largest shareholder all the way through the sale. And our life is and what we're able to do and how we're able to serve and give is so fundamentally different because of so many of those no's, even though at the time they hurt, they're painful. And it's like, I really think those, like so often the most painful times in our life and the rejections and the no's are often like just like serendipitous grace, like wrapped in a package labeled painful, rejection. And so, part of staying positive was really keeping the perspective the whole time of, first of all, learning to really tune in and trust ourselves and our gut, because so many people, even in your community, people I know, myself, this is always a journey and a struggle, is to figure out how to trust ourselves, right? And how to actually, because we're surrounded by so much noise, right? We have all the self-doubt in our own head. We have other people's opinions all around us, everywhere. We hop on social media or the news and everyone's fighting. It's like, there's so much noise that so many people go through life and never learn how to actually break through and turn down the volume on all that stuff, turn down the volume in our own heads of our own self-doubt, and actually get still and listen to what it is our gut is telling us, our knowing, our truth, right? And for a lot of people, that's how they hear God. For a lot of people, that's how they hear their faith. And I think that doing that is so important. And in the book, I talk about so many tips and lessons on how I've done it. But I feel like if people are going to do one thing, just really learning to tune in to and listen to their own gut. A lot of people have never done it. A lot of people haven't done it in a long time. A lot of people feel like they don't know how to do it. And part of not knowing how is just because we're not separating that, oh, wait, everything I'm hearing isn't me. I'm hearing my own self-doubt. I'm hearing other people's opinions. I'm hearing my friends and family who love me, but they only see me through their own lens of experience and limitations, right? We have to learn to turn down the volume on all that, get still, listen to our gut, because at the end of the day, it's the single biggest way we're going to step into all of who we are, all of who we're called to be. And I know you have a lot of athletes on and a lot of people, and competition's a big, and listen, I'm all for like competing, all that stuff. Like, oh, trust me, like I'm driven. Like it's not an accident. We built $1 billion business. But here's what I know to be true for anybody listening, whether their dream is to start painting again or to write a book and just write that first page, whatever it is. And I think this is so important, by the way, because now we're seeing social media everywhere and it's so easy to fall in that comparison trap. When it comes to competition, the biggest thing that I know is true, and I think when we focus on this is another way to stay really, really positive also, and it's true, is that we're not here to compete with anyone else. Like, we're here to compete with like who God made us born to be. Like, we're here to compete with who we know deep down inside we're capable of becoming. And when people really look at it that way, they're like, oh, that's when you know, oh, I'm not in the right job, or, oh, I need to start
taking that dance class, or, oh, I need to, all those things. We know deep down inside, if we're on that track of stepping into all that we are and all that we're created to be. And building self-worth is so important, because here's what I know to be true. And this is a quote straight from the book, Worthy. In life, you don't soar to the level of your hopes and dreams. You stay stuck at the level of your self-worth. You don't rise to what you believe is possible. You fall to what you believe you're worthy of. When I got this lesson in my life, after sabotaging a whole lot of stuff in my life, after getting some things I wanted, but then not understanding why I didn't feel fulfilled, or after getting some things and then literally losing them, this lesson has changed my entire life. I'm excited to share this sneak peek advanced chapter read of my book, Worthy, with you, and also dive into some incredibly powerful tools on how to build true, unshakable self-worth together. I wrote Worthy for every person who has ever doubted you're enough, for every person who's ever doubted your worthiness, and for every person who is sick and tired of what self-doubt has already cost you in your life. And I wrote Worthy after a series of powerful moments led me to consider, what does self-doubt already cost me in my life? And the answer was way too much. And if this is you too, I wrote this book with the intention of helping you feel less alone and more enough, and to share powerful tools that you can apply to your life right now to build true self-worth. So here's the thing, is I used to think I was all alone in these struggles, right? I don't know if you have them too and you feel like you're alone in them, but with deep self-doubt, I felt alone in that. And I used to try to hide it. And, once I became so much more aware, and then I became obsessed with studying self-worth and tools to build it, I learned that I am far from alone. You are too if you feel it. If you struggle with self-doubt, we are far from alone. Studies show more than 80% of women feel like they are not enough. First of all, that is why I'm donating 100% of my author proceeds of Worthy, that in big part go to programs that help build self-worth in girls and women. But it truly is the intention behind this book, because here's the thing, self-worth is the one thing that changes everything in all areas of your life. And what's beautiful and powerful is it is never too late to build it. I don't know who needs to hear this today. One of my amazing friends, Mally Roncal, always says, you are not too old, you're not too young, it's not too late, your best days are ahead. I love that quote from her. And here's the thing, it's never too late to unlearn the lies that lead to self-doubt and embrace the truths that wake up worthiness. So I wrote this book for you if you have some self-doubt to destroy and a destiny to fulfill. And I am so excited, and I just, I'd love to start by sharing some of the most powerful tools on building self-worth and sharing sort of the high-level overview and the table of contents for Worthy, and just sort of share with you a couple lines, and in some cases, some deep tools on the key takeaways so that you know what you're in store with this book. Here's the thing. With Worthy, the table of contents, I'm going to take you through it because I want you to really get it, take it in what we're expecting in this book. So part 1 of Worthy is called Seeing. This is all about self-confidence, self-worth, and self-revelations. So chapter 1 is called The One Thing That Transforms Everything. This is a chapter that lays out the foundation of self-worth and how building it truly impacts all areas of your life. And here's the thing, y'all. Okay, I got to go deep for a minute before I continue. Self-confidence is very different than self-worth. Okay, I want to pause for a minute and I want to go deep here on this, because really this is the first tool that was one of the biggest breakthroughs in my life. And it really comes down to the importance of understanding the difference between self-confidence and self-worth and how they both play out in your life right now, okay? This one's big. See, both are so important. but they both are very different. And I've gotten so many questions from you on social media and even live questions tonight in the comments about this. So I want to go deeper for a minute. See, self-confidence, okay? Self-confidence is how you assess yourself based on your skills, your attributes, how you stack up compared to others, your willingness to try. If you keep the promises you make to yourself, self-confidence, even though it's internal, it can fluctuate by the second based on how things are going all around you, right? If you're winning or you're losing, if you're hitting your fitness goals, how much of the world's definition of success you have. And here's the thing, y'all, almost every advertisement our entire lives tells us, and well-intentioned family and friends, tells us that if we could just get the things that make us more confident, the money, that job title, the white picket fence, the perfect looking family, right? All the things people ask you when they see you, how's your job going? What about your family? Are you in a relationship, right? We're told if we get those things, then we'll be happy, then we'll be fulfilled. But let me ask you a question. Have you ever finally gotten that thing? Like you got it, like you worked so hard to get it. And then you arrive there and you realize, maybe it's after a year or a month or a week or a few hours, you realize you're still not fully happy. And it still feels like something's missing. So then what do we do in that case? We work harder and harder and harder and accomplish more and more and more. We think, I just got to achieve more. I've just got to get that next level. Then we arrive, and all y'all achievers out there, you'll know what I'm talking about. We arrive, and what happens? We still feel like something's missing. Here's why. It's because all of these things that we're so often striving so hard to get, they build self-confidence, which is so important to build. But none of them actually build self-worth. Self-worth is the deep, internal knowing that you are innately worthy of love and belonging exactly as you are, right now, in this very moment. Not as you achieve, not dependent on anything happening around you or not happening around you or anything in the past that went well or didn't go well, but you are worthy exactly as your Creator made you. And so many women, whether you're high achievers or perfectionists or people pleasers, and really people everywhere, spend their whole lives striving and sacrificing for the things like hitting that fitness goal or getting that job title or the marriage and the kids and the dream house. And then they think, all of us do. You guys, decades of my life I did. I thought I needed to achieve to be happy. But then we achieve and we arrive going, why aren't we fulfilled? Because while we're building great self-confidence along the way, which again it's such an important component of life, but we don't realize that those things don't actually build self-worth, and we haven't learned how to build strong self-worth along the way. So both self-confidence and self-worth are such important skills to build in life, but they're both very different. Self-worth is your foundation. That is your foundation. Self-confidence is the house you build on top of it. But your house will only ever be as secure and as fulfilled as the foundation it is built upon. Understanding the difference between self-confidence and self-worth will change every aspect of your life, and learning how to build true self-worth allows you to feel fulfillment while you're achieving all the things that can only build self-confidence. This is a huge revelation, y'all, because for those of you that feel like something's missing in your life and you don't know why and you're doing all the right things, right? And then people often, I'm gonna get way off on a tangent, let me not do this, but people often will quit a job because they think, oh, that's why I'm not fulfilled. Or they'll end a marriage or end a relationship or whatever it is because they think that's why I'm not fulfilled. Something's missing in my life. And so many of the times it's because they're doing all the things that build confidence and they think that they should feel like nothing's missing. But when they do not have underlying self-worth, you can never feel true fulfillment. So here's the deal, y'all. I'm not going to go off because we'll be on here for 10 hours of a worthy watch party, but separate of your victories and achievements or past mistakes and failures, You are fully worthy. Like true self-worth is knowing you are fully, innately worthy right now, in this very moment, exactly as you are. Whew, that is chapter 1, by the way. So let me go through some of these a little faster. But y'all, we didn't come here to play. Like, your time is precious, and decades of my life, I couldn't understand why I felt like something was missing, or why I sabotaged opportunities, etc. This has been the one thing that's changed everything in my life. So I'm just honored to share it with you. Okay, chapter 2 is called Change Your Relationship with Rejection, Change Your Entire Life. If you feel stuck in life, or if you've had, the fear of rejection or failure, or if you've ever felt like you are a failure, and I only say that because so many of you guys write in and say that to me, that you feel that way, this chapter is going to be life-changing for you. Chapter 2 called Change Your Relationship with Rejection, Change Your Life. Chapter 3 is called You're Not Crazy, You're Just First. You're not crazy, you're just first. If you have ever felt like you're different, or like who you are isn't enough, or like you don't belong, this chapter reframes that and will set you free. I am going to come back in a minute, actually, because I really want to share a powerful lesson and a tool with you in words that I hope speak to your soul, that you can apply to your life right now. Chapter 4, you have greatness inside of you. This is all about how your past doesn't determine your future. It's all about how your past mistakes or past pain or past regrets, past failures doesn't determine your worthiness, and how where you come from doesn't have to determine where you're going. Okay, if you're someone who feels like you've made too many mistakes, been too hurt, or maybe you feel like you've hurt others too many times, or maybe you feel like you're somehow damaged or broken or have been carrying around shame, I share some of the things in my past for the first time ever in this chapter. And I share things that most of my family doesn't know, that many who read it might shame me for. But I'm sharing them because this book isn't about me, right? This book is about the one person reading it. Maybe that is you, who needs to know that you are not alone, right? That your past, as my dear friend Ed Milet says, your past does not disqualify you from your dreams. And this chapter, I almost deleted a few times because I know how shocking it's going to be to a lot of people in my family. But here's the thing, y'all. The story the press loves to share about me looks like, the highlight reel, right? It looks like the highlight reel. And Denny's waitress builds billion-dollar company, and that's all true. But this isn't a book about my story. This is a book about your story, right? When I wrote Believe It, it was my journey of learning to believe in myself up until that point. Worthy is the playbook on how you can believe in you. And I just knew I cannot allow this chapter to be deleted because I know what I know. And it is for the one person, and maybe it's you, who feels like what you've done in the past and the shame you've been carrying around for it has caused you to have deep self-worth issues where you identify as someone who's broken or shameful or made too many mistakes and all that, and that you're sort of putting up this barrier of belief of how, we opened tonight talking about how in life you don't rise to what you believe is possible, you fall to what you believe you're worthy of. This chapter is about reframing and shifting what you know. I'm not even going to say what you believe, what you know you're worthy of, regardless of past mistakes or anything that's happened in the past.
So I'm asking you this, I'm just curious. How about right now? like you sit in front of me, you've had all these accomplishments. Do you still have any struggles with this stuff, like to this day? Because stuff I teach people how to get better at, most of the time it's still stuff that I'm working on myself and I struggle. So does Jamie Kern Lima still struggle to this day with her worthiness?
Every single day, and a little less every single day. I think it's a lifelong journey. And here's a huge breakthrough that I'm going to share.
Okay.
First on your show. I've never spoken about this before, but it is powerful. It's changed my life. Is there is a massive difference between self-confidence and self-worth.
What's the difference?
Okay, so here's the thing. And y'all, when I had this breakthrough and really started doing the work here, it changed everything in my life. So self-confidence, right? It's deeply internal, of course. It's a trait, but it is most closely linked with external things. So, the willingness to try, the confidence to try, the willingness to go for it, how you assess things on the outside, meaning how you assess your strengths, your skills, how you compare to others, right? Your self-confidence you build, and it's super, super important, but it is most closely linked to things that can fluctuate, that aren't always in your control, right? Like there's the boxer story about how, the boxer that wins is automatically 20% more, a better boxer because all of a sudden they believe they are, right? But all of a sudden if that guy loses or that woman loses, 3 or 4 times in a row, their self-confidence can fluctuate. And
True.
Your self-worth is deeply internal. It's believing you are enough exactly as you are. You are enough. You are valuable. You're worthy exactly as you are. It's deeply internal, and it doesn't fluctuate based on external things. Now, here's the big breakthrough. You can be, so for anyone listening right, I'm gonna get fired up. I'm gonna jump out of the seat. Jump out of the seat. For anyone listening right now, if you are someone who is like, okay, when this thing finally happens, then I'm gonna be enough. When I finally get married or have the kids, or I finally hit 7 figures in my business, or 8 figures, or 9 figures, or 10 figures. When I finally get my 6-pack, when I finally, right? And then you get that thing, and it's like, okay, it's great for a minute.
Yes.
But it's never quite enough.
Yes.
It's because you have built confidence. You have built confidence in that journey. Now you have confidence in your body and your 6-pack. Now you have confidence in your business, but your self-worth has not changed. And there are so many people, and this is me most of my entire life, where I thought if I achieve enough, I'll finally feel enough. Yeah. If I accomplish this thing, if I build $1 billion business, if I feel confident in a swimsuit, whatever it is, then I'll finally feel enough. But you can have all the confidence in the world, and you will not be fulfilled if you do not have strong self-worth. And that is huge because...
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow. Can I just say something? Wow. You just described me. Yeah. Like even now.
Yeah.
That is awesome what you just flipping said right there. Holy smokes. Because you and I talk all the time. You've never said that to me before. Whoa. So sorry, you guys. So I just want to say this to you. I have really built a lot of self-confidence, but I don't know that I built that much self-worth. And so it is why I haven't enjoyed a lot of the successes that I've had. And to the extent that I have, and you too.
Yeah.
Man, you are on there. Do you think the self-worth thing for most people is, not all of it, but do you think a lot of it is shaped in childhood from experiences? Because I know being raised by an alcoholic, it's pretty hard to have a lot of self-worth, right? Because I don't think my dad had self-worth. And I think, I don't want to assume everybody knows this. Tell them a little bit about your childhood. And do you think a lot of this is shaped self-worth early in our lives? I know there could be an event later where you're like, I just lost all my self-worth. He left me, or I went bankrupt, or she cheated on me, or whatever it might be. But I do think a lot of it can come from childhood.
It can. It's also, though, reinforced our whole life. We're in a culture that rewards when you do things that get external applause. They're almost always tied to confidence or productivity or things that are external. And we grow up believing that if we do those things, we'll be happy. Every single, commercial or ad, or most companies are based on you achieving an emotion if you get this thing, but it's almost always external. And then we're raised by families often, whether they're well-intended, healthy or not. We've never learned this. We've never learned this.
Where did you get this distinction from?
Huge breakthrough, actually, over a really mortifying, embarrassing story I've never shared before, that has to do with Oprah. And by the way, Ed, I want to say this is something I believe affects everybody. I think that, if you really, I don't want to get too granular here because we'll be on for hours, but you think about, look at our country, life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. It's something that we have to pursue. It's not like, oh, we shouldn't innately be happy, right? There's so many things all around us. I don't want to get started. I didn't come here to look cute today. Let's go. I'm like fired up. But here's the thing. There's so many things all around us that tell us if we finally get the thing, if we finally are, whatever, then we'll be happy. And I believe a couple things. I believe you need both self-worth and self-confidence, right? Just because you have self-worth and believe you're enough as you are doesn't mean you're now complacent and you're like just chilling, because that's not a recipe for fulfillment either. But if you do not have self-worth, you will never be truly fulfilled, no matter how much you accomplish. So you need both, right? So you need both of those things. And this is why I wrote Worthy, and it's why it's such a breakthrough, because for anyone out there who does not feel like they're enough, and maybe you're really good at hiding it because you are crushing it in every area of your life, or you're just really good at being the strong one, or whatever it might be. But I believe that deep lack of internal worthiness is why nothing ever feels enough. It's why we don't feel enough. It's why we finally get that big thing and then we're not happy or fulfilled. Or it's why we sabotage things in our life because we don't believe we're worthy of them. And so how this happened for me is, my whole life, I grew up watching Oprah in my living room. And that was sort of like, my whole life, I thought one day, I am going to interview other people and share their stories with the world. And I just always knew. And I had this knowing that made no sense, but I just knew I would meet her. I just knew it. And I was like this little girl in a suburb in Washington State.
Like everybody else was, right?
Yeah, like exactly. Yeah. And when I eventually went, it's a long story that I'll cut because I want to get to the point of it. But I eventually met her at one of her live events backstage. And after meeting her, I wrote her a very long email. And through sheer grace, it got forwarded and she eventually got it. And long story short, she invited me to lunch at her house. So this is, I'm cutting through a lot of how this happened. But I had lunch with Oprah at her home.
Look how you just said that. I had lunch with Oprah. Did you hear though? She just said, just so you know, this little girl who's adopted, who's watching her on television, ends up, you just knew. But now I'm invited. I mean, put yourself in this position, everybody. Whoever your hero is, and that Oprah was your hero for the most part, right?
Yeah.
Your hero is now inviting you to lunch because that part of it matters because of the rest of the story, what happens afterwards. So now you're going to go see Oprah. Go ahead.
Yes, I know you're one of the few people on the planet that knows the story. Right, so I'm going to share it for the first time. And honestly, it's embarrassing, but sometimes the biggest struggles or setbacks or mortifying moments or pain we go through is like not a setback. It's really a setup for what we're supposed to do. And and this certainly was for me. So I end up going to Oprah's house, literally shaking in my boots. But also, I was in this moment in my life. This was about 5 or 6 years ago. Super confident. I was so confident. I had just, my company was exploding and I was so proud of, impacting millions and millions of women and trying to change the definition of beauty in the industry and all these things. And I was really self-confident and also, of course, crazy nervous to meet her and really actually sit down. And we had lunch for several hours, just me and her. And at the very end of lunch at her house, she wrote down her cell number. She gave me her cell phone number and said, call me anytime, just like that. And I left and I did not call her for 4 years.
Oh my gosh.
I didn't call her for 4 years. And when we talk about sabotaging something, right? Yeah. And anyone out there who has done this in some area of their life, in a relationship, a friendship, a career move, whatever it might be, this was like, for me, the person that, my whole life, and now I have her cell phone number. Right. For 4 years, I would tell myself things like, oh, you know what? Like, I don't have the right thing to say yet, but when I get the right thing, then I'm going to call her. Or, oh, everyone always wants something from her, right? I'd make up this story. I'd tell myself, everyone always wants things from her. I want to make sure she knows I don't want things from her. I'm here for real, true friendship. So I'm not going to bug her. Or I would always tell myself these versions of why I wasn't calling her. And 4 years went by.
It's incredible.
And I had this huge epiphany. I was like, oh, I'm not calling Oprah because deep down inside, I don't think I'm worthy of being her friend.
In spite of all your success.
Yep. So at that moment, I realized this was a huge breakthrough because I realized, oh, I have a lot of self-confidence, but not self-worth.
Gosh, Jamie.
And you can have one without the other. And it's why when you keep accomplishing things, or you keep, the thing finally happens, you finally, get that dream relationship, you finally have the kids, or you finally have the breakthrough in your business, but you're like, why am I not happy? Why am I not fulfilled? Why isn't it not enough? Huge breakthrough for me. And when I realized it, A, I was super embarrassed, but B, I realized that is my head, my own self-doubt, my own lack of self-worth telling me these things. But in my soul, I know I am definitely worthy of being her friend because I'm a kick-ass friend. Like I'm a ride.
You're an unbelievable friend.
I'm like, I'm a ride or die friend. Like so I'm like, I know in my soul I'm worthy of being her friend. And that was the moment I decided to call her.
It's unreal.
Yeah.
The first thing I'll say about authenticity, because so many of us are scared to be who we really are, right? Because we fear rejection or isolation or not being included or judgment or all those things. And first of all, just one little tip, and you'll know this so probably way more than I do, Jim. But one thing that's always helped me is like so many studies out there talk about how it's impossible to have a real true connection with another human being if you show up as your representative, if you don't show up as your full authentic self, for better or worse, right? The good parts, the bad parts, the quirky parts, whatever. And whether the relationships you want to have are with your partner or your customers or your community on social media, you actually cannot have a fully authentic relationship if you're not showing up as your full authentic self, for better or worse. And so if right now you're listening and you're like, oh, well, I'm showing up kind of as the person I think I need to be, or I'm getting distracted by other people on social media because they're having great success, or their podcast is doing well, or their business, my competitors' businesses are having success by doing this, so I'm going to do that. You are robbing yourself of that actual authentic connection with your own customers, your own community, or your own friends, or your own family. That literally is the only way, from my experience, to build anything that lasts, anything that matters. Like in my journey of now doing over 1,000 live TV shows on QVC, right? I've met thousands of entrepreneurs in the green room, and most of them only last one show, maybe two, and they're gone. And I would like, over the years, I would think, what is that commonality between the people who end up building something? And it's never how smart they are. It's never how skilled they are on television. It's never that. It's the ones that like are the same way in the green room when no one's watching as they are on air. And they're not, none of them are the same. Some are crazy and wild, and some are totally like, whoa. And some are really kind, but the ones that have that congruency, that show up on air and sell their product, whatever it is, whether it's a Dyson vacuum or a personal growth, whatever it is, they're the same, right? Because guess what? The people watching are able to connect because you can't fake authenticity. And I feel like learning that is freedom, because it is so stressful when you feel like you need to show up on social media as something that you're not, because you're trying to build a following and get more likes, or you're showing up in the dating world and you're as your representative, because whatever, it is so stressful. But like when you realize being authentic it's the most freeing thing, because you now no longer care if something's working for a competitor in your industry or this or that, because it doesn't matter unless it's truly authentic to who you are. And one quick thing is, like, I used to end up, we built to over 1,000 employees. So I went from not paying myself for 3 years to over 1,000 employees. And they would get so sick of me saying this, but I feel like it was one of the keys to our success was they would, tell me something a competitor was doing or a new product launch or whatever. And I would say, listen, our biggest threat to our business is not
what the competition's doing. It's the risk of us getting distracted by it and like getting tempted to dilute our own authentic secret sauce. That's it. And it was kind of like staying true to that helped us actually build something that mattered. And listening to that, even sometimes when the experts out there, or in my case, the retailers were telling me they didn't believe in it. And one more quick thing is just in this process, because you mentioned, the people around you, if they're doubting you, right? Another big tool just to share with everyone listening that helped me is just everybody around you in your circle, whether it's friends, a partner, people you work with, whoever, they're only capable of believing in your dream, whether they realize it or not. They're only capable of really believing in it, usually, if like their own lens they're seeing it through of life experience and limitations has already proven to them it will be successful, right? Like so many people, even experts or visionaries, like they would never admit this, but like if you're doing something new or novel, or maybe it's been done a million times, but you're doing it your own way, it's really hard for anyone else to ever think it's going to be successful because they've never seen it be successful before, because it's never been done the way you're going to do it. So keeping that in mind, and Jim, I would have this imaginary volume dial, and everyone listening has this. Okay, imagine you have your control over your own volume dial. I think one of the biggest keys to overcoming self-doubt on your own journey, whether it's to start painting again, or to start writing that book, or to just freaking go online and make an online dating profile and put yourself out there, right? I think like one of the biggest keys is learning how to control your own volume dial with who you let speak into your life about what.
Your self-worth is literally the one thing that changes everything. The one thing that changes everything. And so often we think, whether it's in relationships, that we need to, do all the work to understand every detail of them to make them stronger. And that's true. That stuff really, really helps to understand at a granular level, how do you become a great friend or a great partner in a relationship? And all of that work's important. But underneath it all, if you don't also do the work of self-worth, of believing you're worthy of great friendships, of great relationships, then you will always sabotage them, or you will always do something to either never go for them, to never ask the person, do you want to be friends, and invest in that friendship as an adult, or you'll never tell the person you want to be more than friends in the relationship, or you somehow will hold back from showing up as the person you can be in that relationship, if underneath it all, you don't believe you're worthy of a really, really great relationship. We'll sabotage it. We'll either never go for it, or in some other way, we'll make sure it cools down to the level of our self-worth. Similarly in business, in your career, your ambitions, the business you're launching out there into the world. So often we think, oh, I just don't have enough experience yet, or I don't have, the right skill set yet, or the right connections, or the right mentor, all those kind of things. At the end of the day, when deep down inside you believe you're worthy of launching the business, of taking that business to new heights, of being an incredible leader, an incredible CEO, incredible boss, right? It's only by believing you're worthy of it that you'll literally go to that level. This is the one thing that literally changes everything. And so it is important to invest in building a skill set and building attributes and strengths and experiences and all of that. But the most important thing is to build strong self-worth underneath all of it, so that you have the foundation of your own identity. So there's a classic example that has been used for a zillion years in personal development, and it correlates your identity to the example of a thermostat, right? So you probably have heard this example, but it's important when you look at it through the lens of self-worth. So you may have heard a number of thought leaders talk about how we all have our own internal thermostat, right? That's like an automatic one. When you imagine walking into a room, maybe in your house or your office right now, maybe you have an automatic thermostat on the wall, and if you have it set at 75 degrees, and if all of a sudden things heat up in that room, what happens? That thermostat kicks in, lowers the temperature back down, right, to 75. Meanwhile, if things just get freezing cold in that room, it's going to kick in and raise the temperature back up to 75. And so the classic example that so many thought leaders have shared is really applicable when it comes to self-worth and your identity. Because let's say you set your self-worth, you believe you're worthy, you believe you're worth 75. Okay, that's the level of your self-worth. That's your identity right now, deep internal identity. Well, then when things go really, really right in your business or your relationships or your friendships or your goals and dreams, and all of a sudden it's on fire, it's a 90, but underneath it you only believe you're worthy of 75, your thermostat kicks in. It sabotages the relationship. It doesn't call that person back. It doesn't show up and put your ideas out into the world. You work less hard, procrastination, feeling stuck. And before you know it, that 95 is back down to a 75. Similarly, if things are just going awful and they're really bad, they're down there to 50. When you believe you're a 75, you'll figure out, okay, what moves do I need to make? What efforts do I need to put in to get back up to that 75? Here's the thing, and I talk about this, I go deep in the master class inside of Worthy on how do you take that number, that 75 and raise it. How do you raise your internal level of identity and self-worth? Because you will not soar to the level of your goals and dreams. You will stay stuck at the level of your self-worth. It is the one thing that truly transforms everything in your life. And the book, which you can pre-order now, you get lots of bonuses with it. There's over 20 tools in this book, which is why I wrote it, because in my life, there are so many things where I didn't realize, why did I stay stuck? Why did I sabotage that thing? Why didn't I go to the next level? Like when I know in my soul I can, right? It's because when we don't believe we're worthy of it, every day, all day, we will sabotage it. We will stay stuck. We won't go for it because we have our level of identity right there at a 75. You know what I mean? And so if you can relate to this, the very first step is just become aware. Today, all I want you to do, in addition to ordering Worthy, because we're going to go through a lot of trainings together on how to do this as well, but I deep dive into it. But the trainings are part of a bonus when you grab it, when you pre-order the book. But what I really want you to do right now too is just become aware of it. Just become aware and be like, what do I believe my own internal identity is around self-worth? And how does that manifest in my life? What have I sabotaged? And think about all the areas of your life. What areas have I stayed stuck in and I don't know why? Like maybe you have a book inside of you or an idea and you don't know why you haven't written it. Or you have this big idea you want to share in that, team meeting tomorrow. And every time there's an opportunity, you don't share it. Because we will not rise to the level of our goals and dreams. We will stay stuck at the level of our self-worth. So for now, just start to think about the areas of your life and how this impacts it. I love you. I believe in you. And by the way, the best thing is we can raise that number. I know it because I've done it. We can raise that number. Okay? That is the most exciting part.
Ladies and gentlemen, rock this house and welcome to the stage,
Jamie Kern Lima! Jamie Kern Lima!
Every single one of us has had someone tell us we're not enough. Every single one of us has had someone say words to us that hurt.